Hi, everyone. We have a mini episode because we were coming across comments recently on some posts, and we were just seeing a bunch of this on social media. So we wanted to address this today. Why would we want to build muscle in the abdomen? Wouldn't that make the waist thicker? Okay, I have so many thoughts about this. What do you think about this?
It seems to be more and more common on social media, which always makes me take a little step back to think like, is there any truth in this? Is this all marketing? What's going on here? Or what is this based in? And in just thinking before we kind of dove into any of the research or anything behind it, just thinking anecdotally about the platform and all of the women on the platform and ourselves and all of the things, like that's never been a complaint that we've heard of, that there's been this significant increase in the thickness of the abdominals by training the abdominals. When we think about training in general in a well-balanced training routine, the abdominals are a huge part of that. If you were just neglecting to train them at all, that could create an imbalance that would be really detrimental to our function, to our spine health, to how we move about our day-to-day lives, all in the pursuit of a specific aesthetic that might not be realistic or even something that you should quote unquote want based on your body type. So it's just, I have a lot of thoughts.
Yeah, I think if someone wants a smaller waist, that's primarily going to be fat loss, which is related mainly to nutrition.
Right.
I looked this up and the rectus abdominis is like 8 to 10 millimeters thick.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if you were to train in hypertrophy or build that muscle, even if you were to gain 50% more muscle mass, that's only like half a centimeter of a difference. Versus if you really do want to lose, waist circumference, then trying to focus on fat loss would be a lot bigger bang for your buck. So I think that the fear of trying to build muscle in the abdomen and getting thicker is maybe not super realistic for most people.
Right. It might be a little bit misplaced if that's specifically something that you're focused on, which we know from a research perspective that our adipose tissue or our deep visceral fat is something that is a marker and an indicator of overall health, especially as we age. So it's not saying that it's a bad thing to think about a reduction in that area. However, the abdominal training itself and like a thickening of the muscle itself isn't going to make a significant impact, I believe, in one way or the other.
Yeah.
Instead, focusing on a healthy, well-balanced routine when it comes to food is going to be super, super advantageous, both from an aesthetic perspective as well as from an overall health perspective.
Yeah, I also think that you might be missing out on training and trying to build that muscle because as we age, that muscle tends to thin. And then also if you add pregnancies in there, if you add pregnancies and age, that muscle and that rectus abdominis muscle tends to become thinner. Mm-hmm. So we want to increase the thickness of it. It's going to be little.
Right. Almost negligible to the naked eye.
Yeah. You're not going to really probably notice much. You might notice a little more definition, especially if you're pairing it with nutrition, but I don't think that we need to be afraid of this.
I agree. And I think that we all need to remember that social media kind of skews us in multiple different ways. If you're seeing these extremes of, well, I don't want to look like that with someone's abdominal definition. Think about like what you're looking at and like odds are that you're probably not going to, like the average Joe or the average person isn't going to gain that type of definition regardless in their abdominals. So it's almost just a skewed view in general. So I just think always, and it's always what I hope to convey and what I think of for myself. I always try and focus on being as strong and healthy in my own body and trying not to focus on one specific aesthetic and most especially not on one specific part of my body, because I think that sets us up for a lot of disappointment and failure when instead we need to be building ourselves up and focusing on how we can feel better and stronger and our best overall.
Yeah, I think not being afraid of training any of our muscles and just getting strong all over is probably the best approach.
Good way to say it. Much more succinct way to say it than I did.
All right. This was fun.
Yeah.
We'll see you all next week. Same time, same place. Bye for now.